Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Shooting the Shift. That's Matt.
Every week. Hello.
That's Milton.
Hello.
That one's Brent.
Whoa, am I?
And this guy's John from that there Formula G, what Violet Running sponsor, and Milton occasionally bothers to show up to and compete in these days.
I won the last event, just saying.
You have done particularly well in every event you've bothered to turn up to this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many events have you been to and how many podiums have you got?
Just two, not boasting.
There is
two events, two podiums.
There is a reason we sponsor you. Still undefeated barrel sprint champion as well, right, Mel?
Undefeated since 2018.
We'll have to bring that back just to
Shut up, John.
Give you some competition.
Can we bring it back with four-wheel drive so I can win some more trophies?
Maybe.
Brilliant.
Maybe.
So John's joining us to talk about Formula G. I've already learnt a really important thing, that I too could be a competitor and maybe win more trophies than Milton by just showing up in my stager and competing in four-wheel drive.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, we didn't have too many entries for all-wheel drive this year. It's a difficult class to enter because to actually be able to do Gymkhana in all-wheel drive, you need to put a lot of money and a lot of power into the car to get it to rotate. So it's hard work. But
what if there's only two of you?
I
have a mate with a Series 3 Landy that would love to win a trophy in a motorsport event.
Me, the Series 3 Landy, and the guy that's actually bothered to build a car to compete.
It'd be entertaining.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it.
So I think the first question, obviously, Formula G went up for sale, like just at the end of the pandemic, or in the middle of the pandemic, or
it was last year.
Was it? Right. So yeah, I couldn't remember. I remember Milton sending me the thing like, "Do you want to buy a race series?" No, Milton, I've got no money at the moment.
Yeah, you'll be glad you didn't. It's not a great way to make money.
It is fun though.
It is a lot of fun.
So John bought Formula G. Why'd you do that? There's the first question for today. Why the did you buy a race series?
Rush of blood to the head. No, so I've been coming along to a couple of Formula G events in the past. I'm friends with Mantas, who's won it in the past, Gymkhana Grid champion. Helped him out, tightened up bolts on his car because he doesn't check anything underneath. And it's just really good fun. That's where I met Milton for the first time. It was a great paddock. It's a good vibe. It's a really good day out. And when it came up for sale, I ummed and ahed about it a lot. I'm not a very good driver, so I'd be better off running it than competing in it. But my wife gave me a little push and said, "Yeah, go for it." So I stuck my name in the hat, and never thinking in a million years that Becky from Fueltopia would think that I put in the best proposal, but apparently I did. So before I knew it, I was the proud owner of Formula G. It was all a bit of a whirlwind, actually.
All came quite quickly, didn't it?
It did. It was a reasonably quick process. It's quite easy. I mean, it's not something you buy every day, a race series, but I don't know if anyone's interested, but it was basically just a request for proposal. I put in a relatively straightforward proposal about what I wanted to do, which was mostly just keep it the same. I really like the format of Formula G. I don't think it needs, lots of disco balls and fancy production values and everything. It's a good, honest grassroots motorsport series, and my main aim is to keep it that way and make it accessible. The more effort you put into a production, the harder it actually becomes to keep the prices down for people to enter. So it was just more of the same because it's great. So why change it?
Yes, that's good, and I like the honesty and the simplicity of that, because usually people would buy something like that, but I want to make it bigger and better and louder, and you've just gone, no, it's good. Let's just do this. I like
absolutely
that.
And you can't be too ambitious in your first year either. There's a lot to learn. I had no idea how the timing system worked or even how you set it up. I've never designed a Gymkhana course before. Never even thought about insurance for motorsport events. So there's been a lot to learn. So yeah, don't complicate it. Keep it simple, stupid.
You've made some good changes this year, I believe.
Yeah, a few little tweaks.
MSA.
MS UK are obviously the governing body of motorsport in the UK. There are lots of benefits to becoming accredited to MS UK, but Gymkhana is not a sport under MS UK. So it was a bit confusing. There was a little bit of a back and forth about sort of what it actually is and where it should fall in. They don't know whether it should fall under drifting or auto test or somewhere in between. So where
drifting.
we basically landed, it's not drifting. It's so far from drifting. It's all grip. So I mean, there's a little bit of slip, but it's mostly grip. So yeah, a bit of back and forth. Basically landed on settling with our regulations, which I rewrote with the aim of making them MS UK compliant. So they went from being relatively straightforward to a little bit overcomplicated, but that's that's par for the course. But loads of benefits to being part of MS UK. It is a long read.
I
actually really enjoyed writing it. Yeah, I mean, the other thing as well is obviously making sure that the drivers who compete in Formula G are okay with the new regs and making sure that they understand them and they're okay with a few tweaks, just to sort of get us closer to sort of MS UK parity. So yeah, it was good exercise. It was a good way to chat to the drivers. We did a survey at the beginning of the year to find out what people wanted to do. Obviously can't implement all the things that people want, but there are a few things along the way that we can certainly tweak here and there to make it sort of more accommodating. So yeah, it's been an interesting exercise.
I know. Obviously, like I was on the receiving end of some of this from you coming out and getting sponsors, and I have probably been the worst sponsor this year by just not turning up. Like with everything I had going on, not turning up. Going, yeah, I'll get back to you in a week, and then it being 2 months later, you get the next email and all of that. I will be about more next year. That's a promise.
Guarantee you weren't the worst sponsor.
Awesome.
But
we don't throw shade in this podcast much.
No shade. No, I mean, because you weren't bad. One of the most valuable things is, in the first year is getting that feedback and making sure that, that sort of collateral is up to spec. And, I valued your input when I sent it over to you. That was really useful feedback. And just having a discussion about what works, what doesn't, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Having closed the season now, I know that, for example, my engagement with sponsors wasn't enough. And having run it for a year now, I don't know whether I can offer enough to the bigger names in the industry to actually get cash in the bank from them. So I think that's going to be a challenge for next year. Being grassroots, there's only so much you can give back in terms of exposure. We don't have, thousands of members and drivers, and we don't have the most clout in the market. We're not Formula One or anything, but hopefully the sponsors see it as a bit of fun and can come and enjoy it and get involved.
Tax write-off.
Yeah, that too. We'll see you guys next year. So.
I actually think, and this is a thing that always rang out in my mind about why Formula G / Fueltopia would be a good idea to sponsor it as a brand that's not the biggest in the world. And that is the first thing I ever saw from now world famous in video games brand Status Error was a Fueltopia Status Error crossover t-shirt from back in the day.
Yeah, the steering wheel, holding the steering wheel, zombie hand thing, yeah.
One of my favourite designs they've ever done, and it was for supporting this little grassroots motorsport. And I wouldn't have known what barrel sprinting is. I wouldn't have understood Milton when he first came to me. Bam, do you want to do me a little bit of sponsorship? Do you want to send me some free clothes every now and again?
That's all it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it starts out. That's, for me as someone who's got a small business and looking to get the word out, actually, grassroots is where it needs to be at. Because I don't have the money to turn around to. I couldn't turn around to Mac at BDC and go, "Here's a massive check. Let me put a banner on the racetrack." Yeah, but I can go to you. Actually, let's do something for the drivers. Let's work together in that way. I'll provide feedback when I can. Next year, I'll make sure that I'm coming down with the camera kit and filming and that kind of thing. You know, and it's about. It's not necessarily as a sponsor what we get out of things. Like, the reality is next year I'll get some content for the YouTube channel. I might get a couple of sales at a discounted rate from the guys, but it's about helping people like Milton and drivers like Milton get started, and to see the growth that Milton's had in his career, going from you know, barrel sprint champion through to the BDC run this year. That's not possible without all the grassroots stuff and the entry stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think it's a really good point, actually. You know, what Formula G is about and should be about, along with other grassroots motorsport, is actually getting people involved in a sport and competing and being competitive and enjoying it. And if they want to carry on doing it for the rest of their life, that's great. If they want to go and progress into BDC and be a superstar drift champion, like Ryan would like to be, that's also great. And if we can support the drivers in getting to where they want to be, I'm happy to do that as well. It's, you know, for me, Formula G it's not a massive commercial enterprise. It doesn't make money. If it breaks even, I'm happy. It's about making sure that everyone has a really good time, has a smile on their face, and goes away wanting more, basically. And if they want to go further in their motorsport career, then we'll support them. And we'll support Milton go to BDC as well.
I think
for clarity, if I actually enjoy, it's been a while since I've done a Formula G event, just because car problems and blah blah blah. But you get 10 times more seat time, and this isn't slating BDC; it's top level, and you've got to be the best, and you've got to have the good equipment. But Formula G is just fun. There's no cloak and daggers. Oh, I'm running 0.2 mil of toe in, what, and like hiding that. You can go up to Mantas and ask him. He'll say, "Oh, why don't you try this?" Or "Go try this." Or "These are the tyres I'm running," and you don't have to have the most expensive ones. I forget, is that the last round proved you don't need the highest spec car, because John, what was the guy's name? I've forgotten.
Oh, Ged,
he turned up in a stock MX-5. Don't even think he had a hydro. He just had some rain sports and a stock MX-5, and he beat Jim Carnegrid champion with his V8 MX-5.
Yeah, the weather helped a little bit.
Yeah, that's technicalities.
It was very wet, but
yeah.
But even still, he was really competitive on the Saturday as well, which is a lot drier.
Yeah.
And that's down to, obviously, he's a very skillful driver. It was his first time doing it, but he was a natural. He learned the course really quickly. He picked it up, and just consistency. If you can turn a car quickly and grip up and go, and stick it nice and close to the barrels without hitting them and not get lost, you've got a really good chance of doing really well, because not everyone can do that. We've got a couple of people who've joined from the drift world this year. That is a challenging transition, because they're used to sort of sending it wide and getting the tail out and making big clouds of smoke, which looks great, but is pretty slow when
Matt
you go
proved
on
it this
G.
year.
Yeah, and Matt's come from BDC to do Formula G with his other half. He's had a great time. He's been a great competitor. He came third in the championship this year in his first time out. But to watch him sort of progress from tail happy, big clouds of tyre smoke, to keeping it super tight, gripping up really quickly. He's changing his setup for Formula G over BDC. He's really thinking about it. He's getting competitive, and he's going to be one to watch. And that's great to see as well.
I think that that point is an entry level motorsport where people can progress from as well, that you made earlier. This season is the first season I've had other Formula G drivers contact me about a potential sponsorship, and from that side, and I'm sure it's because we're on all the flies, right? But those conversations were kind of like, well, how do I get a sponsorship? And I immediately went, where's your proposal book? As I did to you when you first asked me as well. Where's the proposal? I am a business guy who has worked in sales his entire career. I need a proposal book. I look at the numbers and I'll do the maths. And a lot of sponsors are going to be like that in your career. And actually, being a small sponsor for a grassroots motorsport, you can make a lot more cock-ups in that first proposal book you give out, and we'll go, change those bits, go away and get those bits, and then come back to me next season. And that's the conversations I've had, is get these bits of information. You'll find a big company, if you go to them straight away and you send them a proposal doc that's not quite there, will just go, it disappears over the shoulder and into bed.
The other thing you find with bigger companies is if you go to them as a grassroots motorsport person, they'll go, well, what have you achieved so far?
I mean, I ask that question as well.
Yeah, but if you're Funk Motorsport, for example, they're going to ask you what your previous achievements are. And
Funk are actually really, really good about it.
I'm just using them as an example, but bigger companies will quite often want previous success as opposed to somebody who's brand new to whatever you're trying to compete in. So having something that's affordable like Formula G to get in, to go out, to do some motorsport, put your name out there, and then go to a bigger sponsor and go, right, this is what I did last year, this is what I'm doing next year, and you've got a proper proposal.
And little sponsors like BAM are going to tell you what's wrong with your sponsorship proposal. Like he says, the big ones are going to throw it away. So it's a good place to learn that side of it as well. You get to talk to other people, and people like Milton go, oh, what's in your book? Like, can you help me out? It's important to have those stepping stones. And I'm glad that you've kind of set your sights on, this is what I want to do for people.
Also, to say is you don't need the sponsors to compete in Formula G. It's it's fit. I think you get more seat
without them.
You get more seat time than a lot of drift practice days I've been on, and I've been drifting for 9 years now, so I've been to a few. And competitions, you get a lot more seat time. To the fact of, if you're like, oh, I'm just gonna have a chat for half an hour because I know I've got enough seat time in the bag.
Which is probably a good time to say what you actually need to go and do Formula G is very simple. You need a car, you need a helmet, and you need a fire extinguisher. And that's it.
Oh, I'm out. I've not got a fire extinguisher.
Pick one up from Aldi for 15 quid. It's fine.
You are a helmet.
Cheers, mate.
I think Formula G works if you think about it going in the other direction as well, because a lot of people may be sat there doing auto solos or auto tests and stuff like that. And this is a good step up from that into motorsport, like competitive motorsport. Because, auto tests can be very, very competitive, but most people are doing it at the club level. They're doing it a bit casually. Like all of us, I think, have done an auto solo at some point. It's where I met Britain. And I think the format of Formula G is a good step up from that to a more sort of motorsport, as people know it as by definition sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the thing with auto solo and auto test is, I mean, the only times I've ever driven auto solo and auto test is when Moss made me, when they were sponsoring me, and they went, you have to come to the MX5 Owners Club rally and demo. Great, that's gonna be fun. They're gonna love the guy that's modified and unlimited. It went down really well. I had to take my Moss t-shirt off halfway through the day because I used a four-letter word to describe an old lady to her face, because the part of my car had fallen off. I was repairing it. I was in a particularly autistic bit of stress about things not going to plan, and all I heard was, "It's modified and unlimited," and I just stood up and went, "Well, aren't you a judgmental old?"
Yeah.
And the market manager from us walks up to me and goes, have you got your spare t-shirt that we made? Like, literally, by contract, I had to carry a spare t-shirt with me at events because they knew I was liable to do it. Just because of... They had all these respectable drivers and me to appeal to the idiots that were marginally Mexican in orientation. But, like, in a Formula G paddock, you step up from having random members of the public kind of just being in your face. People kind of respect the you're working on your car, I'm not going to interrupt you right now thing. And like when I came down with Milton, the couple of times I've managed to get down with him, there's no friendlier place that I've ever seen. Like, admittedly, I've never seen anyone give someone a gearbox in a Formula G paddock, which I did see at BDC. But like, everybody was just, you go down if it's your first time there, and you're just kind of part of the family to people. They'll talk to you, they'll include you in conversations, and it's just there's no one gatekeeping, and that's kind of the most important thing about it.
Well,
it really is. No, I was just going to say, we haven't had a gearbox exchange at Formula G as far as I'm aware yet, but one of the awards that we give out at the end of the year is for sportsmanship, and this year's winner was a lovely young chap called Tom Edgecombe, who he runs a Mark II MX-5. He's got a Mark I as well, a little drift missile, but the Mark II is a little bit more standard. He's really coming along nicely. But Stephen Gretton bent one of his wishbones, which is a fancy destroy or die wishbone, I think it was, because Stephen breaks everything. Yeah. And Tom saunts us over and says, "Well, I've got a brand new set of those at home. I'll give my mum a call and see if she can drive them down." And the next thing you know, his mum's driving down from Norfolk to Brands Hatch, which is not a small drive, to deliver Stephen these brand new wishbones, for Stephen to then go and take the top step on the podium, which was nice of him. But I just don't. I've done pit crewing for Time Attack and 2CV 24 hours, and there's just you don't get competitors coming over giving you parts to get you back on track to then win. That just doesn't happen. If anything, it's people are much happier to just let you not compete because it's one less competitor to compete against. It doesn't happen in Formula G at all. If someone's under their car, it's everyone's over there trying to get them back on track.
If somebody's under their car anywhere and Bryn's nearby them, you'll turn around and Bryn will be under the car as well.
Yeah, that's just Bryn.
He did it once to me at we were at Driftland. There was a group of us and we were having a conversation, and then we turned around like not 2 minutes later and he was lying under an A86 looking at the gearbox. Like, I haven't told anyone he'd gone to do it. He was just under there.
That's because Bryn sees a car up in the air and goes, "Ooh, engineering to be done."
I was actually, you saying about a gearbox exchange. I do remember one of the events I came to support Milton. There was a guy who had a crank sensor failure and another guy with the MX-5 with the same crank sensor, and they shared it. Between runs, they just took it off one car.
Really?
The other car.
Love it. That's what motorsport's all about.
I can say Stephen Gretton is not just always on the receiving end. I remember I was sitting in queue for 8. Like, I'd done my run. It was on to the next stages, and then I was sitting there, and I went to pull away, and then put my foot on the brake, and my foot just went to the floor. I was like, "Uh-oh!" Pull the hydro, and it just squirt. I get out, and I see my brand new calipers because they were cheap rubbish. And one of the seals had gone. So I call a 5-minute rule. He runs over and lets me borrow his brake hose seal thing, caliper grip, mole grip things, and we grip it up. And then I go out. I didn't win, but he was there straight away. Didn't even hesitate. Like, still in his race suit, ready to help me.
Yeah, there's a lot of good eggs in the paddock at Formula G, and I think it was really nice as well this year. We've had a lot of novices, so people who are new to Formula G, never done it before, just coming along to give it a go in all sorts of cars, and just having a good time. And they've all just settled into the Formula G paddock culture really nicely. We haven't got any egos. We haven't got any
cliques or groups.
No, it's all super friendly. I love it.
Just was it, Bryn? What was that look, mate?
Well, I believe that Melton's there.
No, that's where I am, mate.
Oh, well, you can have it.
Yeah, the ego's coming when you get the stage you go.
The ego is coming. Yeah, don't worry about that.
It goes to the point of it's not even just the racing that's the fun bit. It's like we did Speedfest this year, and it was the first event that you run, right, John?
Yep.
And there was a group of us, and it was just as much fun in the paddock and doing like when the crowds came, being out on track, and then also just the sitting in the hotel afterwards having a few beers and dinner and just chatting rubbish. Just the whole community, and we'll all go down together. We'll all go. Oh, I've got waters for everyone, and then some. John, you did burgers for everyone. It's just everyone together.
Yeah, that was such a massive start to the season. To be invited along to American Speedfest at Brands Hatch, massive event. It's attended by, God, I think like 40 or 50,000 people over the weekend. And they allowed us to share the Speedfest arena with a bunch of monster trucks, which everyone's there to see, which means everyone gets to see us as well. And so, we can't run a competitive round. We can't do the usual stuff with the lights and the timing system because the monster trucks really don't really care about what they crush, and they can't lose everything straight away. So we did a really simple setup. I released the cars onto the track. We just had a few barrels, and it was really organic. And over the weekend, I felt like we'd come from a bunch of guys having a bit of fun in cars to almost like a semi-professional show team. It had progressed so much over that weekend. It was brilliant. And on the second day, the monster truck guys allowed us to do some donuts and skids around the monster truck. So at the end of our little show, they drove the monster trucks up to the crowd and let the guys just have it. It was amazing. Came away with such a high. And I think there were probably about 10,000 people over the course of the weekend that came down to see us perform in the arena, because we got our own show slot as well as a slot alongside the monster trucks to warm up for them.
Yeah,
which is
grandstand
huge.
Was packed. It was sold out, wasn't it? The grandstand, like people were coming for the next show while the current show was going on.
It was incredible. And so it's a bit of a come down when you then go to a rainy Santa pod in October and there's about 3 people hanging on the fence watching. But I mean, what a start to the season. Fingers crossed we'll get invited back for Speedfest next year.
I think
I'll tell you what, actually, I do that. I kind of want to segue on one thing from that, and something we already mentioned, talking about how it's grassroots, it's very accessible, all of that stuff. Opposite to that, one thing that I think is really good about Formula G, as we said, it's a bit of a step up, but the way that it's run, because you have the lights, you have the timing, and you have somebody next to you, it's a really nice way of making it feel more competitive and getting the excitement that it's proper. You've got lights, you've got to get that right. And there's somebody you can see that you're trying to beat without it being, ridiculously so. You're not on track with somebody else, really. You're not at risk. You're not going to get in anyone's way. And I think that's probably quite a big appeal, is that, it feels a little bit more professional, but without being super serious. Like, the only person you're going to beat there is yourself at the lights. But
that's the point I was trying to make without saying that it's a proper motorsport, because auto solos are proper motorsports.
Yeah.
But like auto solos and auto tests, you've got a guy with a stopwatch, whereas you've got proper laser timing beams and all the rest of it. So it feels like Brent's is a little bit more professional.
I think that's the thing that really appeals to me about it, because when the 5's back, I am gonna, like, when the 5 is fixed and it's happening.
Yes, you are.
I am coming down to play.
So when all of our MX-5s are working, all 4 of us are going to go down there and see who's fastest.
Yeah, can someone who's got a drone license just email us at info@violentRunning.co.uk, because someone else is flying the drone that weekend.
We've got a guy, don't worry.
Okay, cool.
There you go, we're all set.
We're all set. Happy days. The reality is I've done circuity stuff on my. I do not understand these sideways boys. They're weird. I don't get it. It's not the fastest way around a corner. There's just a whole heap of. It looks cool, but it's not. And Bryn's right. Being on track with someone else when I've not competed for 4 or 5 years, the MX-5's been off the road now. That scares the shit out of me.
It's definitely an adrenaline rush.
Yeah,
it gets you in that headspace, doesn't it? When you're sat on the start line, you've got your helmet on, it's visor down, the lights are there, you feel, this is, you get that rush.
Yeah,
seeing the other car out the corner of your eye as well.
Yeah,
I say you definitely feel like even watching from the sidelines, because I took Sean down a couple of times and crewed with him, and even from the sidelines, you get that same adrenaline rush because it's 1 versus 1. It's like who's going to cross the line first and all of that sort of stuff. There's a lot more to it, and you feel the adrenaline a lot more.
The thing that scares me most about competing is remembering the layout. I'm just not gonna.
That's the hardest bit.
That is tough, and something that I've sort of had in the back of my mind is you've got to create a layout. This is hard actually. I mean, you could just throw spaghetti at a wall and it'd probably work, but to build a track that everyone can just about get round is quite challenging, because obviously we're catering to a whole bunch of different capabilities. We've got people who've never done it before, all the way through to Gymkhana grid champion, and that is a wide range of abilities. And so one thing I've tried to do this year is just keep it flowy, so it feels like it's a natural sort of way to go around the circuit. I hope I've got it right. I can't imagine I have every single time, but it's most people get it eventually. We've only had a couple of people who don't get it, so I would say don't beat yourself up about it. You will manage it. And having someone on the sidelines as well. Matt, you mentioned that you went along and spotted for Sean. Having someone on the sidelines is really helpful as well. And a lot of people don't realise how valuable watching Formula G is to your competition as well. So a lot of the drivers will actually just sit and watch for a while before going out on track. Watch the other drivers make the mistake.
Yeah, I could say when we were at BDC, there was a while, obviously we were waiting for Milton's gearbox to be fixed. And I said to him, right, because I was spotting for him that day as well. And I was like, right, let's go down to the track and watch what the other drivers are doing, see where they're placing the car, see what they're doing leading up to the corners and where they're making mistakes, so that to look out for those same mistakes. And it was the same doing it for Sean. It was like, okay, everybody's going wrong at this particular spot. It's like, okay, make sure you go this side when you go in, and remember, because if you focus on that, you'll remember to go, and then eventually it'll just become natural to you. But from the inside, you can't see that. And if you don't have somebody telling you this is where you're going wrong, all you'll get told is you're going wrong here, and unless you can find that on a map, you're not going to know.
It goes as far as though when I was drag racing in the 5 and things like that having a spotter just to tell me what the other guys are getting wrong. If they've got a regular failure point in drag racing, and at that point that's your moment that you can get back out in front, it's like it changes the whole thing, because you see, a little 175 brake horsepower MX-5 against a guy in a 600 brake horsepower Skyline doesn't normally stand a chance unless that guy always misses second and third.
You get a similar thing.
Religious.
You get a similar thing. Going back to BDC, I was watching before Milton had got any of his runs in. I was watching just to see what people were doing. It's like, okay, they're all everyone's going off at this corner. It's like relay that information. You then know not to make that same mistake that everybody else has already made, because they're learning the track, and you've got to step up on them already because you're not making that mistake off the bat.
I think the other advantage that Formula G's got is, because you run both left and right hand side of the track, you any handedness that you may have, any sort of predilection to going left or right, is removed entirely. So it really balances out driver ability. It's not about what the track is that day. It's about who's the better driver. And it
didn't always used to be that way. It was also done for mainly for barrel sprint as well, because you'd have times where one side of the track would be wet, or it'd have a puddle in it, the other side wouldn't, and it would be a clear win for the guy, because it'd come down to qualifications.
Especially at Santa Pod, where it's quite patchy in places, depending on where the track
Santa Pod has 4 ecosystems each day.
So, I think I went to one of the rounds, and literally one of the sides was basically just damp, and that was about it. And the other side had a standing puddle on it.
But the drag strip is immaculate at Pod. That's a really important thing.
It wasn't for round 6. They actually closed it. It was so wet. So the runoff or the braking zone was flooded.
Oh god!
When we were at round 6, they sent everyone home, including the medical staff. So we had to finish up early as well, unfortunately. But you know, I mean, this is the great thing about having a really good paddock.
Yeah.
When when Sandsport come over and say, hey, we're shutting up shop in an hour, just to let you know you've got to finish in an hour as well. You can just call all the drivers over, say this is the situation, everyone understands, and you know, what do you want to do? Do you just want to have a practice day and call it quits, or do you want to do a qualifying session and battles now and skip lunch? And we did the quali and battles, and we managed to squeeze it in before the medical staff went home. But it's nice to be able to work with the drivers like that without feeling like a dictator and just telling them what you're going to do. The drivers actually get a say. At the end of the day, it's for them. It's for them to have a good time. And if I'm making decisions that they don't enjoy, then I've failed.
Oh, sorry, excuse me. I drank too much beer.
John, one thing I do want to know though. So you were talking before about how, you know, designing a track that everybody can do, but how do you put the spaghetti on?
Before we answer this question, what I want to know is, will you let me, Bryn, and Matt design around next year?
So this is something we've spoken about, actually, me and Milton, about having guest designers. Okay. And it's been done before. So it's not unprecedented. You just got to be.
Yeah, Dimitri designed the last one called the Russian. It was the Russian roulette layout. It actually worked quite well, but
ours is dead easy. You just write VRS and then they have to go all the way around.
Matt, ours is even easier than that. We'll cook some spaghetti. And then I'll lob it at your back, and whatever sticks, that's the layout.
So John, how do you design it?
So there's no real science to it. It's obviously you can't get a feel for what a course is going to be like by drawing a line on a piece of paper. So there's a little bit of guesswork and a little bit of an iterative process, talking to drivers as well. So we have a little committee that has a couple of non-drivers and a couple of drivers on it. So we sort of have every aspect covered, from marketing, admin, logistics to actually competing. And so what I tend to do is, once I know what space I've got, divide it in half, and I just concentrate on doing one side. Don't worry about what the other side's going to look like. It's just a mirror image. So once it goes onto the computer, I just copy, paste it, flip it, it's done. Then I have to think about what obstacles I've got, how many obstacles I want to fit in. Obviously, depending on the amount of space, you've got to have the right amount of space around each obstacle for the cars to actually get around it. So one thing that Becky, who used to run Formula G, taught me was the golden rule of 7. So as long as there's at least 7 meters between obstacles, a car can get through, even if they're going fully sideways.
You have to take into account MX5s or S13s, for example, is different sizes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Or the four-wheel drives, they need more space. But sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So if you can do more space, then do more, but minimum 7 meters, and that generally allows everyone to get through. Even you can drive around it. Your turning circle, your average car would get around that obstacle okay. Then it's just a case of.
Before.
I used to drive one.
Oh yeah, forgot. It is like turning a battleship.
It is.
That's the important point, though, having the turning circle of a normal car, because you take front wheel drive cars. So a front-wheel drive car will struggle to do a donut around an obstacle, so you've got to be able to get a normal turning.
Unless it's a Seat Ibiza driven by a madman.
Unless it's got Mackey's trays.
Yeah, anyway,
carry on, John.
Carry on.
No, that's okay. And then I just have a few ideas, and I just scribble, and I see what works, and I tear up a piece of paper and throw it away and start again until I find something that I think will flow quite nicely. And I steal, I have a whole heap of previous maps, so I can steal various obstacles and sort of configurations that I quite like. So I'm like, I quite like this particular configuration of barrels and this way around it. So I'll try and incorporate that into a different design, and then just make sure that it's got a few nice long straights for the cars to really open up, and then a little tight technical section for the lower power cars to catch up and try and keep it relatively equal. So that the worst thing you want is to have a course that flatters a higher power car or a lower power car, because then you're instantly like dividing the field into two. You're
I've
going
had
to
that
be
before.
competitive and you're not, which does happen. I'm sure, Brands Hatch for rounds 3 and 4, we had a really small space. And so for the guys with big power, it was hard work. You didn't really have much space to let the car breathe and cool down, because you're not going in a straight line very much, or just for a short period of time. But also, you're also not carrying much speed into an obstacle either. So getting that car to rotate when you're going quite slow relative to what you're used to, that's also challenging as well. So you've got to there's a lot to consider.
Because we've had
It's
tracks
a lot of
before.
luck.
I think we was at Silverstone, and it was, I want to say Speed Machine. Don't know if it was or Rallycross, where we had like a chicane that was, for me, really hard. Even though I'm in a small car, I don't have power steering, and it was full lock one way and then full lock the other. It was and even the MX5 was struggling. It didn't flow very well, but the rest of the track was great. But like round 6 we did this year, even though it was wet, all the drivers were saying how much fun it would be in the dry, because it really tests your nerve and your guts because you can go a lot faster than you think round a few of them.
Yeah, we'll definitely bring back that course with a couple of tweaks. So there was one bit on that course I didn't like, which was the 540. It was just, there were too many turns around that barrel. That was sort of there was a barrel inside some pylons, and you're sort of going around inside, and it was just too much, and it just killed the flow of the track. So I think a couple of minor tweaks, and that'll be an absolutely banging track. And we'll bring it back, because people didn't really get a good enough chance to master it. So that's definitely something we could do. Bring back.
The thing is, one good thing I've noticed about this year as well is how things can change on the fly. For example, we get told we're given X amount of space, and then on the day it goes, we've had to move you. Or, for example, the pod, sometimes the puddles are bad, or there's some potholes on concrete that's opened up that we didn't expect.
Yeah.
That we might need to move some obstacles, so the map's not quite right, but how we adjust to that.
Yeah, it's, you do get to know the tarmac quite well. It's the main, and actually generally you can sort of shift things a little way, one way or the other, to sort of cater for the odd pothole. The puddles are difficult because until it's actually rained a lot, you don't know where the puddles are going to be. So for example, for round 6, we had a lot of rain overnight. We came back and the whole place was just underwater. So we spent a little bit of time in the morning trying to figure out what could we change on the course to make it so that you didn't have to drive through these huge puddles. So we made a couple of suggestions. The drivers ultimately voted, the majority voted to keep it as it was, and just sort of drive through the puddles in the hope that they'll clear or it wouldn't be too bad. The biggest problem we had this year was actually for round 1, where we were given a very long arena at Santa Pod, which meant the guys could really open up the cars, get up some good speed, and they really enjoyed that. But the track was slightly too long for the timing system. So the timing system's a drag timing system, and drag timing systems time out after 1 minute and 20 seconds. So anything longer than that, it just returns a nil value. It assumes you haven't finished, because who the hell takes 1 minute and 20 to get down a drag strip? Probably me and my 2CV. But so we had to have like about 10:30 in the morning, when pretty much every single time was coming back nil. We had to have a little drivers meeting on the fly and say, we've got to take out a couple of obstacles. So which ones are we going to take out? Again, working with the drivers to figure out what would be the easiest change, so that they're not having to completely relearn the track, just to bring it under 1 minute, so that it returns some times. And that was, I didn't know about that.
I didn't know either.
Most tracks, no, I don't think we've ever had that long a track in Formula G. So there's always something new to learn, always something new.
So I think, again, interesting one, because obviously the aim of this whole thing and having the conversation, having John here, is let's broaden the field next year, so that I can't just turn up in my stage year and take second place every round in 4-wheel drive, because there's only 2 competitors. That'd be kind of boring. But I would brag about it and tell Matt that he'd lost forever because
You could just we could just remove your front drive shaft and convert you to rear wheel drive though. So
let's not do that to an RS4S.
It's fine. At the moment, if I'm competing, I'm running.
I'm scared of the MX-5 Owners Club and their opinions on my MX-5. I'm pretty sure the Stager Owners Club might murder me for two-wheel driving an RS4S.
It's more common than you think.
But if you were going to start at what is the most common car in the field? What is
MX-5? Yeah.
It's always an MX-5.
Miata is always the answer, as they say. Yeah, so we have a lot of MX-5s. They're very popular for very obvious reasons. They're fantastic value for money. They come with near perfect balance straight out the box. And they're competitive because they're lightweight. They've got a decent power to weight ratio, even with a pretty standard engine. And yeah, they've got good mechanical grip for a standard car. So you can be quite competitive without making too many modifications, without making any modifications really. And then the next most popular, I guess, at the moment is probably a toss-up between S bodies and 350Zs. Also very popular.
350, I think.
Both are the wrong answer.
And then, Brent, remember that if everybody thinks back, other than John, to season 1, and the plan with the Daewoo.
The Daewoo Matiz.
The Sex Spec Daewoo Matiz. So, what's the weirdest car anyone's competed in this season?
Oh gosh, I don't think we've had any strange cars at all.
And is there still a front-wheel drive series for when we turn up in the Sex Spec Daewoo Matiz?
I think a better.
If we have enough front-wheel drives.
Like I say, what's the better phrasing of that question is probably what's the most unexpected car that's shown up. Like you expect MX-5s, you expect S bodies. Yeah. What turned up that you didn't expect to see?
Oof.
Well, I know in past, I know cars, but
yeah, this year it's probably Levy and his 350 convertible, which is not a common car, and also not the most motorsporty car either. I think most people associate a 350 convertible with
hairdressers.
I don't know.
But then MX-5s.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that pop up on socials, and my first thought was, you don't see many of them. Because I don't think they sold in great numbers in the first place because they were just so much heavier than the coupe.
Yeah, especially doing like Formula G because it probably weighs twice as much as some of the MX-5s that are out there.
Yeah.
Literally twice as much.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's been fantastic.
I'm going to say my RX-7 is 150 kilos heavier than a coupe, which is it's not an insignificant amount when you're doing what you're doing.
And it's all high as well.
Yeah.
Didn't we do the maths once that your RX-7 isn't far off the weight of the Stager?
It's not that heavy. It's 1,400 kilos, so it's not
and the
light.
Stager is 1,600 kilos.
Yeah, so that is heavy.
With it's got two sunroofs, Brent.
Yeah, I mean we are talking about a car that was developed in the 80s and is a convertible sports car, so they put a lot of chassis strengthening in there. So,
John, is there any exclusives you can announce for next year? Or any... Oh, hang on, hold that thought. If someone wanted to come and try Formula G, where should they go?
They should go to our website and they should sign up to Learn to Gymkhana, which is being held on 17th of December at Brands Hatch. We've rented out the big paddock, which if anyone's been to Brands Hatch is sort of in the bottom corner at the bottom of the hill. It's a lovely space. We're going to have a bunch of seasoned pros of Formula G, including Ryan and Mantas, and I think Mike Newland's coming down,
and
Stephen Gretton, and a couple of others I think are going to pop down as well to give you some coaching. So if you wanted to get out on track and you were feeling a bit nervous, you don't want to turn up to a competition next year, this is the time to do it. There's no pressure. It's going to be really relaxed. We're going to do a really simple circuit, and you're going to have some people who know what they're doing talking you through it, basically spotting for you, sitting alongside you, and helping you through, so you can progress quick enough to hopefully compete next year if you want to, or just have a really good day out with lots of seat time and lots of fun and lots of coaching and learn a few things.
So
it's going to be fun.
I keep hearing southern tracks. Any plans for anything in the north?
Well, so the reason for doing Learn to Gymkhana at Brands Hatch is it's quite close to me. So it makes things easier. It's the first time we've ever done anything like this, so I thought we'd keep it simple to start with. I've got a really good relationship with MSV at Brands Hatch as well, which also helps. They've been really helpful over the last year. They got a really good team. So next year, hopefully, we're going to get back to Donington. They have one of the most amazing tarmac lakes of any circuit around. So hopefully we'll be able to use that. And yeah, we'll see where it takes us. As I said, it's got to be simple. It's got to be relatively easy, because otherwise it's not going to happen.
Donington is close enough for me to drive over in the stage yet and not be bankrupt after that drive.
Yeah, so that's 20 minutes. And so there's 20 minutes for my parents. So I've got really no excuse for not showing up for that one.
So yeah, hopefully we'll get to Donington. We'll try and do Speedfest at Brands Hatch again. We'll definitely be back at Santapod. It's the spiritual home of Formula G, so we'll be back there as well. And then maybe a couple of other places that we've got in mind as well that aren't necessarily a sort of first choice or the first thing to come to mind when you think where should we go. But we're trying to explore a few different options. Awesome. Mix it up a little bit.
I think from my side as a sponsor as well, if you want discount on anything violent running, the biggest discount exists by going and competing in Formula G. It's bigger than any club discount. The only person who's got a bigger discount than a Formula G driver is Milton, because he's directly sponsored by us.
I think I paid
100% discount.
No, I paid.
You paid retail for that cap. You did.
Yeah, because it was.
I paid retail for everything I'm wearing.
That is the prototype.
I don't take your discount.
I know. It's really good. Like having friends like these guys, because we know you give us all discounts. We're not going to use them. It's brilliant as a small business.
To be honest, I don't even know what my discount code is.
I can tell you right now. It's really easy.
Is it my name?
Yeah, with a number after it.
Okay.
Suddenly going to get a load of orders with that discount code now.
That's fine.
It's absolutely fine. We gave away. I think it was at Formula G at Cov Motorfest. We wrote a discount code on some of the signatures Milton signed.
Yeah.
And nobody's used them yet. So if you have Milton's name with a number after it from Coventry Motorfest pre-COVID, buy some stuff.
Yeah. Coventry Motorfest is fun.
It is. Really hope to get back there this year.
Next year.
I cannot remember. Yeah, next year. Thanks. I'm already there. I can't remember exactly when it's going to be, but
I think it's June or something like that.
It's a June.
Yeah.
Pretty much smack bang in the middle of the year.
I really want to get out on the ring road at Motorfest for reasons.
John, because we're MSA, MSV, MSA, UK, MSV, wasn't that one of the rules? You could only go on the ring road if you're MSV, MSA, B's, ABC.
So before Coventry Motorfest was sadly postponed due to the passing of our glorious monarch, the original plan was to take an arena. Unfortunately, the cost of it spiraled because Coventry Motorfest was they wanted to come back after the pandemic bigger and better than ever, and they'd run out of concrete barriers, long story short, which meant we were asked to try and source some for ourselves. And I don't know if anyone's ever looked at hiring concrete barriers. They're peanuts to hire, but they cost an absolute fortune to transport.
That's where they get you.
Lorries. And you can only get about 14 on a trailer. And so by the time you've actually got enough barriers for a proper arena, you've got 3 or 4 lorries. The cost is insane. And, I couldn't pass that cost on to the drivers. It was going to make the weekend way too expensive for a non-competitive round for them to turn up and then also spend their money on fuel, tyres, hotels and everything. It was gonna turn into
We did the maths, and
Silly
we did
money.
split it up. It was still quite a few hundreds of
'cause
pounds between us all.
I remember Milton having that conversation with me, and me like phoning family that run construction companies, and them just laughing at me. I was like, they're like, yeah, you can have them if you'll transport them, and that was the
transport that's the killer.
Yeah.
So we knocked that on the head, and Coventry Motor Fest gave us a stand, but they did say that we would be able to run the circuit, run the ring road. So fingers crossed, the offer still stands, and we'll be able to do it next time. So
look after the sponsors, John.
absolutely.
As long as you sign up
number one priority.
Yeah, you've got to do at least one round of Formula G to compete.
Yeah.
At Donington, that's fine. I'll take the stages to
yeah,
Donington, and then I'll break some speed limits on Coventry's Ring Road.
So yeah, watch this space. The best thing to do is sign up, register on our website, join the competitors' Facebook page. That's where you get all the latest news about what's going on, and also sign up to compete. Have a go. That's the most important thing.
Links are in the description.
Links are in the description. They are in the description on Spotify, but I don't know if they're that easy to click. They are there.
We can test it.
Yeah.
So if you're listening on Spotify, the website is...
I don't know.
It's a long one. www.formulagchampionship.com.
Oh yeah, we've got a .com domain. They're more professional than us with our .co.uk one.
Well, next year we might change the website.
Okay.
So we'll have some redirects in place, so obviously people don't get lost. But you can get a .racing domain, which I thought was pretty cool. So I may or may not.
I'm fairly sure.
So
if
next
you stick Formula
year-
G into a search engine, it'll come up anyway.
Yeah, it will.
So
Or any of our socials, we've all got links somewhere.
You're on all the socials pretty much. So
yeah, Instagram is we're probably most active on because it's the one I like most.
Yeah.
I think to sum up, if you want to be like Milton, get down to Brands Hatch on the 17th of December.
Yep.
Conveniently timed a couple of weeks ahead for the podcast going out. Don't know why we did that. That was almost like we were trying to be helpful for a change.
just a weird coincidence.
Yeah, weird coincidence that we did that. And if you want to stop me coming second overall in four-wheel drive next year by turning up to one event and taking a second place podium, then if you've got a four-wheel drive car, get along next season. If you've not got a four-wheel drive car, get along next season and see if you can build Milton and steal his sponsorship from him. I don't know. That's the thing that we could put up on the land to motivate him to compete.
No, I'm committing to do a full season next year.
Are you committing? Are you going to commit live? Well, not live, but are you going to commit on air, on record to win next season?
I can't beat Mantas. I don't think I've ever beat a Mantas. He's my kryptonite. And seeing him in that new V8, which is a beautiful car.
Hell of a car.
You'll beat him in at least one round because me, Matt, and Bryn are going to be designing it.
That doesn't help. There's some rounds where we've done where the track just clicks for some people and it just doesn't for others.
Yeah.
I remember a few years back, we was at Rockingham for a double header, and it was, I think because it didn't flow, there was a lot of times where you'd come into an obstacle and you'd think you'd go like round that way, but you actually come in back on yourself, and that'll just really throw the whole thing up.
That's where the Sparta comes into its own.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
and look, even the world champion makes mistakes. So I think that's one of the funny things actually is that you watch people have not the fastest run ever, and they sort of just get slower and slower and slower. And I'm in the tent watching them going, keep going, because I can see the other side, and the guy's knocked a barrel or something, so he's picked up a penalty, or in the case at round 4, Mantas got lost.
I think the best example of this is going to the Gymkhana grid final that Mantas competed in. I think it was the final. I might be misremembering.
The second one. It was
It's
the one
the
before
semi-final.
I'm
that.
thinking Daigo Saito.
Yeah. So all the runs, I think it was the final of the 2 runs.
Yep.
And coming up to the finish line, Mantas is behind. He's out card. There's no doubt about it. And Saito just understeers into the barriers. And then Mantas passes him for the win.
Yeah.
That's the classic case of never give up.
Well, Mantas was actually ahead when he came out of that 720. Weirdly, he came in behind, and because he can get his MX, he does. So the great thing about MX5s is you can almost drive around an obstacle. You can, if you find that sweet spot
tiny.
between the slip and the grip. The turning circle is super tight, so you can get around an obstacle much quicker than a longer car.
You're not counter steering; you're steering in always.
Yeah.
So Saito is in a Supra. It's a much bigger car, and Mantas did his 720. I mean, in not quite half the time that Saito did it, but he came out slightly ahead. And then, as you say, Saito understeers into the barriers. But Saito had won the first round.
Yeah.
So had he not hit those barriers, he probably would have come out on top anyway.
The aggregate score was Mantas behind, but it was so close.
Yeah. Never give up, even if you're having an absolute mare, because you never know what's happening on the other side. You really don't until you get into that stop box and see what's happened. Even if that person's in the stop box before you, they could have hit a couple of barriers.
Well, we proved it at round 5 because both Lauren and Terry got through because of the other competitors making mistakes.
Yeah,
Lauren's a newbie, Matt Smurf Smith is, and then Terry Just Jap. She's always there. She loves competing, but sometimes just get in her own head a bit. But yeah, she made it through.
I think that's the thing about any motorsport is actually just a thing about life. Don't give up. Keep going. So there's a positive note to end on, guys.
That got deep.
Absolutely.
It did. It's been a philosophical week for me this week, Milton. I've been exploring a lot. So I think so the moral of the story is if you're going to go compete in Formula G, get an MX5. Partly because
please don't. We have too many.
Yeah, micro.
Micro racing in.
Micros
dominate auto test. So
the best thing about Formula G is the fact that you can buy anything. Like, is there any car that you can't compete in?
Diesel Golf.
I mean,
a Robin Reliant might
not
roll
shouldn't.
over a lot.
Oh my god!
By the regulations.
So we ask for cars rather than commercial vehicles.
Okay.
We've been doing some discussing about trucks, and I think once you start getting into the bigger vehicles that are over 2 tons, it's really we got to make a call really, because a 2-ton car is very different to a 1-ton car when it hits something or someone else. So we've always got to think about it from a safety point of view, not to sort of end on a downer, but so for anything other than a regular car, we would probably take a view as to whether it's a suitable vehicle to do it in. So I think if you turned up in like a Luton van or something, we're not going to let you out on the track. But
I think the thing is you've got to use a little bit of common sense, because if you turn up in a Luton van, you're not going to be competitive.
No.
Here is where my common sense has left the building, Matt. There is a commercial vehicle that definitely weighs under 2 ton. That is a Daihatsu Hijet pickup truck, and it's rear-wheel drive.
And we'd probably let that run.
And the crumple zone is your knees, and you're gonna have a really bad time if you crash it.
It's a good point though about the weight, because the follow-up question for that is then, what if somebody shows up in something like a 3-ton Tesla that is a normal car? It just weighs a lot because of batteries and that sort of thing.
So EVs are another one. I mean, I think because EVs are becoming more mainstream and more popular, they're being allowed onto track days. That's great. We would love to see EVs competing. But yeah, I mean, again, we've got to take a view. There are a lot of considerations with EVs over and above the weight and the performance. And that's down to fire safety, mate, first and foremost. We have an EV fire. That's the end of the weekend. Most circuits aren't fully prepped to deal with an EV fire. And also because Formula G, people modify their cars, and MS UK and are fine with standard EVs, because standard EVs have chop-in points for fire brigade. They have all the firefighters and the response crews. They're trained in standard EVs. They're not trained in modified EVs. So they don't know whether they're cutting through a high voltage cable or not when they're chopping up the car or dealing with it. So there's a lot of issues to work around. We've got a guy who's super keen to get his EV converted, Porsche 911, which I'd love to see go round, but we just can't get a passport for it.
So I remember, it must have been like 2017 or 18, something like years ago. There was a guy showed up with a Tesla swapped. I think it was an R32.
R32, I drove it.
Yeah. It wasn't very competitive and it wasn't very reliable, but this is still like 5 years ago where EV conversions were really new. So it's obviously a good thing that people are going to start converting all the cars into EVs, so they're going to carry on living, because eventually fossil fuels are going to run out. But it means that people can still go out and do motorsport.
Yeah, the biggest problem with modern cars though is obviously all the sort of traction controls and safety controls and stability controls that you don't really want when you're doing Formula G. It's very difficult to get a car to rotate when the car's fighting you every single step of the way.
I have thought about traction control.
But yeah, having a modified EV is almost, essential to be able to do anything other than track driving. So it's a bit of a challenge. It's something that we're working on though.
I guess it's one of those things that you as an event organizer, you're going to think about, and it's going to be in the back of your mind, but you're not really going to cross that bridge until somebody turns up and goes, I've got this EV, I want to compete.
Well, we have the Porsche 911 guy. So, we definitely want to do it, but there's a lot of hurdles to get over, unfortunately, at the moment. But we'll get there. It's just a matter of time.
The thing is with Teslas, I know they used them in America doing some drag race, spectator drags, Cletus. And he said that he lost because the car, when he got close to the car, the Tesla would brake automatically because he thought he was having an accident.
Yeah.
So can you imagine going past a barrel, the Tesla like,
so you're this far away from a barrel. It's like, nope, you're having a crash.
Yeah.
I have a fix.
Maybe able to hold in your mirrors to get closer.
Go on, Bryn.
I have a fix for your EV safety problem, right? So the issue, of course, is that the battery packs, when they set on fire, you just can't put them out.
They're on fire. That's it.
Weekend. So what you have to do is, if you've got an EV, you mandate that they have a fire suppression system, but not to put the batteries out. It would just, like, we've all seen the videos of people with a CO2 fire extinguisher in a chair. All it would do is just launch that EV somewhere else that isn't your event.
So what you are in essence proposing there, Brian, to clarify, is a rocket-propelled EV.
Yeah, that makes it someone else's problem.
Brian, I've got a better idea.
We could do that at
the day room it is.
No, at Rockingham, and aim it at the people who got the track closed houses.
That's not what happened. That's absolutely not what happened.
I know.
A better way of doing it is, electric cars, the problem with them, they're so heavy because they've got such big batteries, right? And it's charging like that. What if you, instead of the battery being like this big, what if you had it like this big, right? You put it in like the front of the engine bay, like where the front is, and you put like a small like petrol gasoline like generator in there. It seems like more efficient way of doing things.
Milton, that still needs dead dinosaurs to keep going. And
not necessarily.
That's not environmentally friendly.
Hydrogen.
And stop climate change are going to come and glue themselves to the front of your car.
We have gone on a massive tangent. Bam, you're going to have to do some chopping and editing.
I'm not going to have to edit.
It's not that big a tangent. It's not that big a
tangent.
We did get very far away from the wrapping up you were doing, but I did want to ask the question of...
They're going to have to deal with hydrogen eventually.
Yeah, John, what's the rules on hydrogen and methanol?
God, it's dangerous.
We took... It's a case-by-case basis for alternative fuels, but the environmental thing wasn't a massive tangent, because one of the things that's going to change next year for motorsport is that every series is going to have to think about their environmental footprint, and that includes us. So one thing we've done this year is offset all of our competitors' fuel usage in competition. through our partners, Carbon Positive Motorsport. And they're a specialist motorsport offsetter, and all of their sort of offsetting projects are in the UK, whereas a lot of these offsetting companies send your carbon credits to the Amazon or somewhere. So it's nice to keep it in the UK. And they're really nice guys. They're rally boys, so slightly mad, but it's nice to be one step ahead of the curve. We're going to have to do it next year anyway, so it's nice to get it done this year. And I think I totted it up yesterday. It was about 1,180 litres of fuel used in 6 rounds of Formula G by all competitors.
So about what the M-Band would use in the Rotary MX-5 in the Stagia.
It's basically a drive in the Stagia, isn't it?
Yeah, you're gonna need some more seeds when I turn up.
Wait till the Rotary comes down.
But that's all included in your entry, so you don't have to pay extra. It's all included.
Do I have to pay extra because of the car I'm bringing? Is that
no?
Brilliant. Right. So anyway, we have held everyone's attention for a whole hour and 10 minutes or so, and that's probably as long as they want to listen. Really, that's about the point they start dropping off on YouTube. Anyway, John, it's been awesome to have you. Thanks for coming along. We will be at more Formula G next year. I'll be filming some stuff for the YouTube channel there. We're gonna come back as a sponsor somehow. Me and John need to have that conversation about next year, but we'll figure it out. We're going to be sponsoring Milton
You're in
next year. Awesome. And one of the things I want to offer actually Formula G drivers, and I'm going to announce it here because John's not had many exclusives, so I'll announce it here. If you need someone to have a look at your first driver book proposal next year, fire them over to us, and I'll have a quick read through them, and I'll give you some pointers, some advice on that. It's important that we support the drivers in the series as well. Other than that, he's been Matt. He's been Milton.
Little pips.
He's been Brent. He's been John.
Thank you. Good night.
I've been Bam. Thanks for watching Shooting the Shift. We will catch you in another 2 weeks' time when Matt's got some weird news or something that we have to bring back, and he's got his own credits, and it's all a bit bonkers. Hit the like and subscribe.
I have some news too.
Uh-oh. Milton, you've mispronounced nudes. Anyway, thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye.